Hello all! This is quite obviously a 2 amp hour 12 volt battery for Parkside power tools, the 12 volt power tools. You can buy those power tools from Lidl as and when they appear there. But this one's a new version. It's the A3 variant and it has cell balancing. So let's get this thing open. This was £9.99. I've got a funny feeling that the 2 amp hour 12 volt batteries are normally £7.99, so maybe they're charging a bit more for this version with the cell balancing. We'll have a look at that manual. Bit of an unnecessarily large box for that, but that's the A3 variant battery. So here we are, it's the PAPK12A3, 12 volt, 2000 milliamp hours, 24 watt hours. Now I've just noticed on the bottom there's this QR code sort of etched into a little recess on the bottom. Now don't tell me that they're bringing out a charger that's going to read that barcode. I don't think so. So let's just compare this A3 variant to the A2 variant, and I've also got here an A1 variant. Let's turn them upside down, because the first thing you'll notice is that the A3 and the A2 have this little pip and the A1 doesn't. And you'll notice that in some of the chargers, like this dual 12 volt charger, there is a little pogo pin down there which touches against that pip, and if it senses one of these two later version batteries, it slightly ups the current from I think 2.5 amps to 3.5 amps, I think. So you can see here in the manual that the A1 battery, which doesn't have the little pip on it, charges at 2.4 amps, so 60-minute charge time in all three of the charger types. This is the dual charger here that I just showed. The A2 and A3 variants charge at 3.5 amps in the more sophisticated chargers, the ones that have that little pogo pin, but 2.4 amps in the basic charger. And then there is actually a 4 amp hour battery, which I do have. It's here. It's got this triangular 3-cell part at the top, but it's also got an additional 3 cells at the bottom, so it's a 6-cell 4 amp hour battery. That of course takes twice as long in the basic charger, but it's quite quick, 4.5 amps in the more advanced chargers. So time I think to take this apart and take a look at this cell balancing circuitry. Intriguing. Oh, well, that's rather annoying. There's a piece of sticky foam on top of the circuit board. I think that's going to have to come off if we're going to take a look at this. There are a couple of current sense resistors here, one fairly large one. But yes, I think I'm going to have to take that off. Now, I wonder if they've deliberately stuck this on what looks like the wrong way around, because it's shaped kind of the other way, to avoid sticking them over the current sense resistors. I wonder if they get warm. Well, let's get this foamy, sticky black stuff off. Wow, that's a lot of stuff in there. These are quite possibly Mosfets. Come on, camera, there we are. These are, I don't know, oh, they're Mosfets as well, aren't they? Because look, those 3 pins are connected together, so that'll be the gate down here. And we've got source and drain. There are 3 of these little 6-pin chips, or possibly 5-pin. There's a big controller chip there, another 6-pin one here. There's a lot of stuff in here. In fact, I'm going to open up one of the other batteries by way of a comparison. And you can immediately see that the A2 battery is quite a bit simpler. We've got 2 big Mosfets here. These appear to be Mosfets as well. But I can't see any controller chips. Now, whether they're on the other side of the board. I have done a video, I think, on this battery. I'll have to have a look at that. And here's the A1 battery. 2 big Mosfets there. And a controller chip. Now, whether there's a controller chip on the other side of the A2 PCB, not sure. But nothing like the complexity of this battery with balancing. Let's see if we can withdraw this from its housing. Oh, it doesn't seem to... Oh, yeah, it does. It does slide out. Okay, there are the cells. Oh, there's sun power. That's interesting, because the little ones used to have, I think they were called Grizzly, Well, actually, I could open these up, couldn't I, and just compare them. Yeah, so here are the Grizzly Cells. They're the same capacity, I believe, 2000 milliamp hours. Yeah, same as this. This is 3.7 volts. These say they're 3.6 volts, but I don't suppose it makes much difference. But yeah, they've gone to these sun power cells. Okay, interesting. Right, let's check some voltages. So there's a ground connection there. And then we've got, oh, that's slipping. We've got cell 2. Right, so cell 1 is there. And that's reading 4.0, exactly 4 volts. Cell 2 is there. And that's reading 8.02. And positive is there, B positive. And that's reading 12.03. So they certainly look like they're in balance. Now, pretty much all the components in here, the big chip is an LGT8P30. These two Mosfets are LGT30N03, I believe that is. And those two SOP8s are LGT30N, I can't quite read it, but something along that. So they're all marked with this LGT marking. Now, of course, the little 6-pin or 5-pin SOT23s are fairly anonymously marked C3 and PD. Oh no, that's a transistor. And that one I can't see because it's quite small. But I just wonder whether these markings have been put on afterwards, or whether this is a chipset built specifically for power tool batteries. Let's just, by way of comparison, check the cell voltages on this one. So ground cell 1 is 4.14. Let's actually go cell 1 to cell 2 on this one. 4.14. They're going to be perfect, aren't they? And cell 2 to B plus. Well, they're pretty good on here as well. There's the little 24K resistor. It goes between the pip there and the T, the temperature sensor connector. It's the same on the A2. It's the same 24K resistor, although strangely that's a 4-band on the older battery, and that's a 3-band, but whatever's available, I suppose. It also goes between the pip and the T connection, and of course the A1 doesn't have that facility. So there it is. That's the A3 variant of the 2 amp hour 12 volt battery with cell balancing. Now it says here longer battery life. Well, I think we can understand what they mean by that. If the cells on an older style battery, say this A2 one, went out of balance, then of course you've got an effectively smaller capacity battery because they're going to hit the end stops sooner than if they're in balance. But this one, increased lifespan, I'm not sure about that. In fact, you could almost argue a case where it wouldn't be an increased lifespan, because you're going to take every cell fully to 4.2 volts and fully to 3.0 or whatever the bottom is. Whereas if it's out of balance, some cells are going to be pushed to the top but not the bottom, and some cells are going to be pushed right to the bottom but not the top. Could that actually give them a longer lifespan? I don't know. That's arguable, but certainly longer battery life if your old cells drift out of balance, but that one doesn't seem to have done. And so what are the Parkside 12 volt power tools actually like? Well, the screwdrivers are excellent. I mean, I use them a lot for building my shed. The brushless planer is astonishing. It's incredibly powerful and works really well. The cordless, now what is it? The angle grinder, the 12 volt angle grinder, that's a bit noddy. But yeah, it's interesting that they've got a feature of cell balancing on the 12 volt power tool, even before I've seen that feature being sort of advertised for the 20 volt power tools. They do seem to be putting quite a lot of emphasis on their 12 volt power tool range, but then 12 volt power tools are quite handy and useful for the occasional DIYer. 20 volt power tools sometimes feel a bit unnecessarily powerful. Certainly when I was assembling the shed, 12-volt screwdrivers just felt more comfortable than using the 20-volt. They were just unnecessarily powerful for the small screws I was using to hold the thing together. So here's one of the 12-volt drills. This is actually the C2 variant. There is a D2, which has, instead of this rotating gearbox, it has the gear lever on the top. You can take off the chuck on these. It's quite good, so that you've got a 1/4-inch hex end there if you're just using it for screw driving, which I often do. So let's try the A2 battery in here. Sounds like that. Let's try the A3 battery in here. Oh, possibly a semitone higher. So your 12-volt power tool batteries now have cell balancing. Ooh, cheerio.